Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again to do another Let's Make a Movie podcast. This is talking about the November shoot with Kate the Great, which is my nickname for her. And this is the first podcast that I didn't end up doing after everything happened, and I decided, I'm just going to quit that podcast and I'm just going to give up on it. And, this was the first one that I kind of missed out on doing and was really unfortunate because I feel like, honestly, like it was stupid to be like that. It was stupid. I have those moments quite a few times, like where it's like, okay, I'm just going to give up on whatever. And then I just kind of come back to it over and over and over again until it's done, like that's my new way of doing things. Like, it used to be where I would just give up. Like when I tried to get my first movie made and I did the whole crowdfunder thing, I gave up on it. And then for a while I was like, maybe I'll try to. And then I just gave up again and I gave up again. And, that's just the process of making a movie is you either give up or you don't. It's really that simple. And so this is going to be talking about working with Kate the Great on two characters, not one, but two characters, because at the last minute, the person who was supposed to play Lucille, she committed fraud and she backed out even though she signed a contract. And then she leveled false complaints about me to the casting website. And so Kate had to do her work too. And what do you know? Nothing bad happened whatsoever. Which is hilarious because it's like, yeah, like I guess like sometimes people really overblow things and they really make a bigger deal out of things than there needs to be. And it's kind of like with me, like a lot of the times when I get anxious and I get nervous, like I get a terrible stomach ache and I feel like I want to throw up, and then whatever happens and you feel good about it. You feel like, that wasn't anything. Like going to the dentist or going to the doctor or stuff like that. And you guys can tell, too, I've had a little bit of that laryngitis stuff come back. And, but at least it went away for a long while. And I think that it is just something that comes and goes, I guess, or has been coming and going, based on allergy stuff and also based on acid reflux, which I guess I've always had an issue with acid reflux. And so for starters, it took months to get Kate the Great to be available. Originally, we were supposed to film together in August or September, and it ended up to where she just could not make it because, frankly, I could not afford to get her here. So that was like a big issue, because, I'm paying for the whole movie all out of pocket, and, it all adds up. And that's another thing, too, is that I really wish if I could go back in time and I could do it all over again, I wouldn't do anything differently, obviously, because, like the whole experience of being a human is that you learn and you go through experiences. You have good and bad ones, and you grow based on those experiences. Nothing's ever going to go perfectly, but if I could do it all over again, I would have just made a movie where I would get people close to me and I would hardly spend any money, because all the stuff that like has been my favorite stuff to shoot has been like stuff like the first Waitress shoot and the opening for my other film, People Pleaser. Because these were things where it was like, I worked with what I had, and it was all about getting the vision of the page out on the screen. And a lot of the other stuff I've had to do, it's been like, oh, I got to spend money on this. I got to spend money on that. I got to get this person from Boston for 400 plus bucks to be here. And I feel like that's a stupid thing for a filmmaker to do when they're first starting out. If they don't have any money, it's so much smarter to just work with what you have and to get the help that you can get. Like, I was able to find someone, an actress, and she was on the casting website the whole time. She's only an hour away. And I could have had her be in any number of these roles for like years. So, like, yeah. Anyways, then after the postponement of Kate coming here, I had to just basically wait around until the right moment came, and I got enough money, and I saved enough money up to get her here. All the while this happened, I had this terrible laryngitis issue come on, and it all started out to where I was taking a walk and I just became horribly ill, dizzy, and my throat felt really rough and terrible, and I was doing that review of the Whammon of the Hour, and I was just feeling awful. And from that point on, I kind of had this terrible problem where I could not really speak for a long period of time. I tried resting my voice for a week. That helped temporarily. I took an antibiotic for a week. That kind of helped a little bit, but really didn't. So I guess it all had to do with like acid reflux and or anxiety or allergies. And so it's all been like an experience of figuring out like what is triggering it so that I can stop it, because it continued to be a problem. And then what happened, and I'm not going to get too much into it, obviously, because that's not what this video is about. But my uncle ended up going through a series of bad events, which you can't really completely say were not somewhat his fault. And he ended up being at a terrible place. He was probably already in a terrible place for a long time. And he committed suicide the day before Halloween. And it was terrible for a number of reasons. And honestly, like, I can't get into all the reasons right now. But one of the reasons was because the fact that, like, I am able to talk to people in such a way as to where I am able to reason with them and to, make people understand. Like, there was this girl that I knew in middle school. I met her online, and she was a very depressed person. And I was able to talk her out of committing suicide twice. And on these days, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm just stating a fact. And on both times, like, I sensed that something was off, and then she threatened and she talked about it. And so what I did was I stayed home from school on purpose, just to make sure that she wouldn't do it. And both times she did have to get her stomach pumped. But the first time, I don't know. I didn't really get the full story, because after that point, she kind of became even more aloof than before. And we kind of drifted apart. But I was able to thankfully help her, reason her out of doing that. But in this case, I wouldn't have been able to talk to my uncle even if I wanted to, because I was experiencing this laryngitis. And so if I would talk for a long period of time, it would obviously, it would make me feel worse, and it would make me sicker and sicker, and it would have been really, really bad. And so in some ways, I guess I just felt kind of powerless because, I was sick. And then that whole thing happened, and it actually made me feel even worse. So, it was just a horrible, horrible experience. I don't even know how to describe it. And again, there's a number of reasons why it was horrible, and I can't mention those right now. But I'm sure that a couple of people would be able to figure them out. And I also think I was the first one who was able to kind of see that it happened. Because people were still wondering if it did or didn't happen, because there wasn't any communication from him. And I was the first one to say, like, yeah, he did it. And, you know, Safi didn't even want to believe it. She was kind of like, what? Like, I don't know. You don't know? And I was like, yeah, he did it. So, yeah. And, I don't know. I guess that's just not what this video is about, but, you know, it really was a bad thing that happened. And what made it even worse was the fact that on Halloween, at the same time that I learned about that news, I had an article, my first ever magazine article come out. And it was like, that day would have been so perfect if that hadn't happened. And if I wasn't sick. So it was like this strange and terrible sort of like sequence of events where, like, at the same time that my uncle commits suicide, I get my first ever magazine article published. And, yeah. So then right after that, I had the whole casting website suspension happen, where basically, if you guys didn't watch the last episode, you will be finding out what they did, why they did it, based off of their zero evidence suspension. They suspended me based off of these two people who, one of them filmed with me once, and she had a great time. She loved it. I'll tell you all the things that she did really quickly. She autographed the poster. She took a picture of the poster so that she could send it to her whole family and show them how happy she was to be in the movie and how awesome the poster looked. She told me the seats to pick out for her family to come to the premiere, which was months later. She wouldn't have done any of these things if she felt discomfort throughout anything. She took a prop home as a souvenir. Again, you wouldn't do that if you had some kind of a problem working with me. You know, because there were other people who didn't take any souvenirs, but they enjoyed working with me. But, like, she took a souvenir home and all these things. She took pictures with me. She did an interview with me. And then at a point in the shooting day, she actually left with her parents to go eat lunch. And she came back. If she was having a problem with me, she wouldn't have come back. She would have taken that chance to leave and say bye-bye. And then finally, her parents were outside the whole time. And she always had her phone out at the ready on silent mode. But if she ever had any issues, she could have easily brought both of her parents in. So it's fucking laughable. It is absolutely laughable. And it's even more embarrassing because I filmed the entire day. Like, there's not one thing that wasn't on film that I have. And, you know, it's really embarrassing for her to have lied like that. And the other girl, she signed a contract and she was supposed to come here to be another character, but then she objected to the fact that I was the only person making the movie. And which is really hilarious because I'm not the first person who's ever made a movie by themselves. I'm not the first person to be a one-man crew and a one-man show, basically. So it's just, it's really, really embarrassing that, like, these people that they come up with these little stories and these little, like, it's like they assume the worst. And then you have people like the casting website where they will believe them just because of their gender, and then just because they have these preconceived notions about, like, okay, I'm a man. And that's another thing too. This woman who complained to them, she would not have complained if I was a woman, if I was a female filmmaker. So that's another thing. She was discriminating against me because I was a man, and it was blatantly clear that she was. So all of those things happening at the same time, my uncle's suicide, the casting website thing, all that stuff, and being sick, it was terrible. It was like the perfect storm of terrible things to happen. And, and then right after that, boom, I got to work with this woman who's coming here. And this is somebody who's SAG eligible. This is somebody who, she's worked on quite a few, like, professionally made, like, studio made things. So this was like the perfect storm. On the day of her arrival, I had a phone call with my former co-star. I was trying to see if she would talk to the casting website as well, because every single person on my cast talked to the website and told them that they didn't have a problem working with me. Every single person, basically. Well, then, my former co-star, instead of trying to be helpful and be honest, she immediately started tearing me down. She ragged on me for being the only one on set, saying that she was very surprised that I was the only one, which is really hilarious because at this point she had been following me on social media for a year. I had never given any indication that there were other people whom I worked with. Even with her personally, I never gave any indication that I had a crew of any kind. I posted a ton of behind-the-scenes pictures where you could see it was just me and the actor or the actors. And so that was a lie. That was a complete lie. And it's like, well, yeah, you were surprised that I was the only one on set, but what does that mean? Like, that doesn't have anything to do with, like, so what? Like, I'm the only person on set. Like, it's my fucking movie. I'm the crew. I'm the guy. Fuck off. And then she ragged on me for not spending money on equipment. The problem with filming on your iPhone is that it doesn't look like a real movie. And she sent me this short movie that she made, and it looks so much worse than anything I've ever shot. It was legitimately terrible. It was like plagiarizing Scream, the opening scene in Scream, and it was awful. It was abysmal. And the whole movie was so dark that you could not see what was going on. And so in post, they actually had to turn down the contrast all the way to -100 so that they could try to make you see what was going on. And she was trying to make me believe that movie looked better than what I had shot. Which is, again, also just shows how two-faced she is, because when she was editing stuff with me, she would constantly say, like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. This is genius. That's genius. This is the greatest thing ever. And like, oh, well, suddenly it's not. And then she ragged on me. This was another thing. She was like, you need to take a break from your movie and give up on it and start over. And you need to go work on a quote-unquote real movie set. And it's like, again, like this elitist behavior that, like, because I'm a one-person crew, I'm not working on a quote-unquote real movie set. I got news for you. A real movie set is whatever the fuck you want it to be. If it's just one person in their fucking basement with a fucking iPhone 4, iPhone 5, iPhone 6, just filming themselves, I don't know, like just mopping the floor, that's a real movie set. because you're following your dream. You're seeing your vision through. You're making the movie. A real movie set is what you want it to be. There's no such thing as a quote-unquote real movie set, because a real movies are subjective. Like, movies were created by people. Movies were not just, they didn't just appear. There was a system that came to place in in Hollywood. They just didn't start happening. Like, people figured it out together and by themselves. So, yeah, that really pissed me off. But she ragged on me for not having a quote-unquote beat sheet. And so it was also like, she's like, oh, I'm smart now. I've learned all these real movie set terms, and you didn't have a beat sheet. But you know what the funny part is? I did have a beat sheet the whole time. And you know what? You know why she didn't notice? Because she didn't care. Every single time I gave her a shot list, she threw it on the floor and said, who cares about that? And the only reason why she didn't know there was a beat sheet is because she did not care. And she did not even pay attention. What a beat sheet is, it's a really stupid, kind of unnecessary thing. It really doesn't, like, enhance, like... And that's another thing, too. It's like, so you're saying that the whole reason why our shoot didn't work out is because I didn't have a beat sheet, even though I did? Like, that's just fucking retarded. But what it is it lists the different scenes, the characters, the props, and the amount of pages that each scene is. It's really unnecessary. I would say, instead of wasting your time with that, just come up with a prop list, like a prop checklist of, like, props that you need for each shoot. That's really all that you need. You know, like, especially if you're doing, like, a small movie by yourself, you do not need a beat sheet. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. And, yeah. And then she ragged on me for speaking out about the frauds and the posers. She said that it's unwelcoming for people who are coming to your movie to see you being so mean and speaking out about these people who are unprofessional and who sign contracts and don't honor them. And to that, I would say, well, that says a lot about you, because it's like, you know, this is coming from someone who did not show up to film multiple months in a row, who basically tried to take over my movie, manipulated me and lied to me, hurt my feelings on purpose, treated me like shit, did all these things that were terrible and horrible. And it's like, maybe it feels unwelcoming because you know that you're a horrible person and you want to come do some more shit. You know, maybe that's why it feels unwelcoming. And I'm glad, because I want people like her to feel unwelcome. She nearly ruined my movie. She nearly ruined my life for something I'm not going to talk about in this video. And so, yeah, I couldn't give a fuck less. But at the time, I did care because of all the other things that happened before. So it was kind of like, it felt like she was tearing me down. She was punching down, or trying to punch down. And this is what she does, though. This is what my former co-star does. She tears you down. She does all this horrible shit to you. And then she expects you to not care about what she just did. She treats it like it's nothing. You know? That's basically like her method is like, I'm gonna make you feel really good, and then I'm gonna tear you down, and then I'm gonna act like I didn't. So that, yeah. So anyways, I was feeling horrible. My morale was in the trash can. And later on that day, Kate arrived at the airport. And this was kind of a funny story about I feel like this whole encounter, this interaction, perfectly represents what it was like for us to work together through this first shoot. So first I go in the airport. She says, 1 minute, I'm in the bathroom. And then, all of a sudden, she's like, I'm outside, where are you? And I'm like, I'm inside. And then I went outside, and then she's like, I'm inside now, where are you? And I'm like, I'm outside. And then she came outside. So that whole encounter, it was like in a Scooby-Doo episode, you know, where the people go in and out the doors and chase each other around, you know, like, that was pretty hilarious. But it was like we were really out of sync. This was really like not the best timing, this whole shoot. It would have been so much better if we had gotten it done in August or September like we originally planned. And we got along really well at first. Like, we were talking in the car, and, you know, we started to gel really well. But already, like, I felt something was off. And I noticed, like, she was kind of nervous, or she seemed nervous. And it was weird because in the whole months leading up to that, when we were on the phone and everything, she never seemed like a nervous person or anything. But she ended up telling me that she was a huge introvert. And so it was like a big adjustment for me to work with someone like her, because I've never met somebody that introverted before. You know, I grew up where, you know, people would say, like, you're an introvert because you're sitting alone at lunch. And it's like, no, just because I'm sitting alone at lunch and I don't have anyone to sit with, that doesn't mean I'm an introvert. That means that I have no one to sit with, you know. So I had never met, like, a real introvert before. So it was a big adjustment, even though she was very nice. Very, very respectful. She tried to communicate as best as possible about, you know, how she was and how, you know, because that, I have never heard of, like, I have never even seen, like, even in movies, I've never seen somebody this introverted. So, again, this was like the perfect storm of feeling like shit. And honestly, that night, before we started to film, I didn't even know if the shoot was going to go well, because I was just feeling so badly that I was like, I don't even care. You know, like, and that's terrible. It's very unprofessional of me to admit, but, like, I was just at such a low point because of all the things that had happened. And I was really looking for some kind of motivation. And I found a movie on Tubi called Cecil B. Demented. And that movie saved the shoot. It was so inspiring, and it uplifted me so much that it literally saved the shoot from being a bad shoot to a pretty good shoot. It was all about, I'm not really going to go through the movie because that's not what this video about, but the gist of it was a very inspirational story about this rebellious group of filmmakers who do it on this level to where it's like they're not doing anything, quote unquote, the studio way, and they kidnap a real actress and they force her to be in their movie. And just the way that they didn't care, and the way that they just pushed ahead, and they just did anything they could. Sorry, I keep on getting interrupted. Somebody keeps on texting me literally over and over and over again, so it's really hard to focus. Just the way that they persevered, and the way that this group of filmmakers in the movie, even though it was all fictional and it was all made up, it really, really made me feel good, because I was like, this is what movie making is about. It's not about doing things the studio way. It's not about doing things a certain way. It's about making the movie. It's about the creative process of moving images with actors and story. And as long as you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, nothing else matters. Nothing. And it really, really made me feel good. Like, and it was a really good experience watching that movie. I'll never forget it, because obviously some of what I was feeling was very silly to feel that way. You know, like letting my former co-star get to me. I don't know why I did that. It just, I don't know. I guess because obviously a lot of what she was saying was lies. It was lying. It was being dishonest. And for some reason, I expected her to be more honest than that. And I expected her... And you know what else, too? She wasn't willing to talk to the casting website, but she encouraged me to get somebody else and use their account to cast people through them. So it's like, again, like, that's the two-faced nature of her. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to vouch for you, but you should totally just use someone else's account to get on there and do whatever you want. Because it's like, if she really did have some kind of a problem with me, which she doesn't, she and I are going to be making a short movie together next year or the year after, she wouldn't have encouraged me to do that. So again, it's like, a lot of these actors and these people who are frauds, they're very two-faced, and what they say is sometimes it's like just completely the opposite of what they'll say another time, you know. So the next day, this is another thing that I forgot to mention. Kate was the only actor that I didn't ask about having a dietary restriction, and she has the big one. She has a gluten allergy. So I was like, oh no, you know, I made this lasagna. It was probably the second best lasagna I've ever made. And I was so sad that she couldn't eat it or anything. But it also meant that I ended up having to spend a ton of extra money on getting her DoorDash, Uber Eats, and all this food out. And I was lucky because I had done this survey. Even though I had this terrible laryngitis, I could barely speak, I did this video survey where I had to do all these videos every day for 2 weeks. And I got $300 from that. So I suffered through doing that, through having this throat issue, and then doing that survey every day. It was painful. It was terrible. There were some times where, like, after I was done, like, I was dizzy and I could barely, like, it was a nightmare. So next morning, we went to the bike path, and this first waitress shoot went really, really well. I got all the shots I needed to get. She never complained once. It took like an hour. It was very fast, very furious. And I opened up to her about what I was feeling and about the whole phone call I had the day before, because I didn't want, because I know that, like, at that time I probably had some really bad juju vibes off of me. And I didn't want her to feel like any of that was her fault. And she tried to reassure me, like, look, it's your movie, and I don't know why, like, you shouldn't even care about what anything that person has to say. So yeah, she was really nice to do that in that moment. She really helped me out. I felt so much better after she said what she said. So then we get back home. This is when we did the latex suit process. Now, I admittedly found this thing. It was like the first result, like how to make a latex suit. And it seemed kind of like something that, I don't know, it seemed like a weird process because it seemed like this is too good to be true. I basically thought that I was creating a mold of her. Or not really a mold, but like something that would look like her, to where I was able to not have to do very much work afterwards to make it look like I thought it was going to shape around her. Like it was going to shape like her, but it really didn't end up doing that. But anyways, she was already really cold from the shoot in the forest, and we went straight into doing this. And it was like a torture experience because I turned on the heat, full blast. I turned on the heater, but nothing was making the room any hotter. And what this process involved was her putting on a spandex suit and painting latex on her, on the suit. And it was like, I was like, damn, man, like, you know what? Like, this is a... This is definitely surreal. It is definitely a very strange experience. But she was a go-getter. She was completely like, yeah, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get through this. And I tried to talk to her and make her feel at ease, you know, relax her, make her feel like... I put on a podcast for her. We listened to a whole, like, paranormal podcast together, and... You know, it's funny because even though she's so introverted, we get along really, really well. And so it was really, I think, a lot of fun in some ways to just talk to her, get to know her more. I asked her about, like, other projects that she's done. But I kept on thinking, like, how can I make this better? And I made her a cup of tea. And I let her drink that in between waiting for the latex to dry. I got the space heater and I literally started holding it up to her to make her hot and to make her feel warmed up. But yeah, it was a pretty intense experience just because of being so cold. Of the cold weather. It was really, really cold. And now here's where it got to be a big issue. After we were done, I left the room, and this is the part where she had to take the latex suit off so that it could hang up and dry. Well, there was a step that she didn't really want to do, I guess, because, again, like, she's introverted, and I'm not gonna, like, insist on anything unless she's totally on board, because yeah, like, you know, I'm on her side and I'm not there to harm her or make her feel like she's doing something she doesn't want to do. And so she missed the step. I told her, before you put on the spandex suit, make sure the first step is you have to put lotion on. Put it all over, completely everywhere. Like, just put it on in, like, a large amount. Because, guess what, guys? When you put latex in anything, like, I've made molds with Model Magic and then poured latex in it. But when you make stuff with latex, you want to put lotion on, because if you don't, it's going to stick to you. So she did not do that, and she admittedly, she paid the price, and she even said, like, oh, I should have put the lotion on. That was an error on my part. And see, I wish that I was more knowledgeable about, like, latex and things, because if I had known, I easily would have told her, like, hey, this, I know it sounds weird, because it sounded weird to me when I read the instructions, but, like, I was like, you know, your latex is going to stick to you. So her getting that latex suit off, it was like a comedic experience. It was like in Spider-Man 3 when Peter has to take off the venom and the black suit in the church and it's sticking to him. Like, that's what it was like for her. And even worse, it completely ruined both her undergarments. And so I actually had to come in and help get the bra out of the latex and rip it off without tearing it. So yeah, it wasn't what I expected. I gotta be honest. If I knew it was gonna go how it went, I wouldn't have done it. I would have done a different process. I would have done something completely different because I felt like it was kind of a waste of time and a waste of effort. But I am going to use it and I am going to make it work because she really, really put herself out there and I really appreciate it and I want her to feel like it was worth it. After that, we filmed the second waitress shoot, which took place in the restaurant set, quote unquote. And this was yet another shoot that went by in like an hour. It went by so fast. And Kate was so happy that she was so elated because she wanted to get to her Airbnb as soon as possible so that she could warm up and, drink a hot drink and, all that crap. And so she complimented me after we got done because she was so appreciative of how different my shooting style is. And she was so appreciative of the fact that it took like an hour and it didn't go on for like 5 hours. Because she was saying like, if I was here, I'm gonna get the text. Where is it? There we go. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah. Let's see. If we had like 5 or more hours of filming to go, it might have been even worse. But getting out of it now is so funny to me. I wish I had a camera shooting me taking the latex suit off to show how funny it was. So yeah, I was glad too because I was like, look, like this is what would have happened, by the way, if like those other 2 actresses showed up and did the work that they signed up to do. They wouldn't have had a problem at all. It would have gone fine. And they know it too. So it's really embarrassing for them because, again, Kate did what both of them were supposed to do combined. And she's the most introverted person in the world, and she didn't have a problem at all. So, again, and Kate was really a go-getter, but I gotta admit that some of the time, the way that she was, like her introverted nature, it kind of got to me because it just kind of reflected what I was feeling based off of the other stuff that had happened. So, like, the next day, like, after we got done shooting, she was like, I want to go wait outside because, like, she didn't want to wait in my room with me, to go to the airport. And there were moments like that where, admittedly, I did kind of feel, like, hurt by that in kind of like a way where it wasn't her fault. It was just the fault of, like, how I was doing at the time. So, but even though that stuff did happen, I thoroughly enjoyed working with her. And the final day that we shot together, we shot her scene as Lucille. We shot 74 shots in an hour. Like, that's insane. That's fucking insane. And I gotta say, there were a couple of errors. Number one, there were quite a few times where she looked at the camera. And I'm gonna actually keep all of the footage because I think if it works well, it could be like a creepy thing. Like continuing to look at the camera, maybe like to make you feel like you're there too. But there were some errors like that, but to shoot 74 shots in an hour, I mean, wow. That was I was so shocked, and I was telling her I was starting to laugh. I was like, I thought this was gonna take 4 hours to shoot, and she was like, "Oh my god!" Like, because I'm sure that's how long it would have taken on a quote unquote real movie set. So there were some issues though with the wig, because she had to wear a wig to differentiate her hair from the other character, since she's playing two characters. And the wig, I guess she's not really experienced with using wigs, because it looked really bad. And I could not figure out, like, how do we make that look better? Maybe by putting a baseball cap on it, which is what we might do next time she comes here to finish up her shots. But what was interesting was that same wig Erin used when she stood in for her, and it looked great. It looked like it was like her natural hair almost. Like you could barely tell that it was a wig. So I was kind of like, why did it look so good with Erin but look so terrible with Kate? That's kind of like a mystery to me that I'm still figuring out. I'm actually going to ask Erin, like, why is that? Because is it just because it needs to be brushed a lot more? Like, I don't know. So, yeah. But there was kind of a rushed feeling to our final shoot that I will say, like, if I had to do it all over again, I would have taken a little bit more time. It felt like maybe I could have gotten a couple of more shots. For safety, for editing, for like, let's get another angle because maybe that one won't work. Because there were some shots where they're not going to work. There's one shot in particular that it bugs me every time I'm running through the scene in the editing app. Or I mean, not scene, one shot. And it's just a shot where I'm like, I really do not like that shot. And, it's like, it's kind of painful for me to watch because I'm going to be redoing that shot when she comes here the next time. So we went to the airport early, and it was also cool because Safi and her got along really well. She has a lot in common with Safi. They both really like birds and things like that, and there's a lot of other things. And so I was also thankful because I think that out of all the actors, she's probably the one who's gotten along with Safi the most, which is good because she's the driver. Kate and I do not have driver's licenses yet, and so Safi is driving us around everywhere, and yeah. And then finally she arrived home, and she reiterated how much she enjoyed working with me and how she was excited to continue working with me and read my script, my other script. And yeah. So as I said at the beginning of this video, she came here from Boston, Kate the Great. She did everything those two frauds were supposed to do. She didn't have any problem. And we got shit done. So, yeah. Sorry, guys, at Casting Calls America, but you're not going to be stopping me from making my movie. And it's just like, this is the attitude that people need to have. Like, you can't let anything stop you. You literally cannot let anything stop you in making your movie. Because if you do, you're going to have wasted a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of money, and you're going to look back and think like, wow, I wished I'd have just made that movie. Because once you make the first movie, you get into a groove of things. And for me, I think like if I can get help and if I can get a little bit more money off of this movie in terms of like make a profit off of it when it comes out, like I'm going to be in a really good spot, and the next movie isn't going to take 3 years to make, you know? And so, anyways, please like this video and comment and tell me what you thought of my experience filming, and then, yeah, please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest videos like this. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.